Good morning, everyone. Wow, another great FedTalks event. I think Goldie just told us this is her 5th year. It's amazing. And so much has happened in 5 years in IT in the federal government, hasn't it? So we have a great panel for everyone here today, and they're going to be talking about what they're doing within their agencies to innovate. And what I'd like to do is start with Casey. And Casey, give us, in fact, let's go around. Each one of you give us like 1 or 2 minutes of what's going on? What are your key strategic priorities you have going on in the agency today?
Well, it's hard to get through all of them in 1 or 2 minutes. Let me pick one that I think is front and center, and that is GSA's moving toward a much more mobile and much more agile workforce. And evidence of that is our moving back into our renovated headquarters building at 1800 F Street. It's been renovated under the Recovery Act, and when we move back, it's going to be completely open, collaborative space, and no one will have an assigned seat. So we'll all be booking our seats through an online system that lets us reserve the space where we need to sit, where our work takes us that day. So the underlying technology is really vital to making that work. Ubiquitous wireless, voice over IP, reservation systems, and so forth. So it's an experiment in our using the space to put twice as many people into it as before and be able to understand how to do that effectively so that other agencies who are clients can learn from that experience as well.
Is there one of those that's near and dear to your heart?
I think the mobile. I think that's front and center for everybody. Yeah.
Okay. Robyn?
Common theme, different approaches. The number one priority in my office right now is something we affectionately call mobile Treasury. And it starts with consolidation, but it's so much more than that. We are consolidating a number of our pieces of infrastructure that we have in different places into two large places. But as we're doing that, we're rebuilding the infrastructure, making it enterprise, making it more flexible, rebuilding the security architecture so that we can secure at the level that we need to for each piece, because our security requirements vary so much, but not over-secure anything as we do that. And then, we're doing virtualization at the desktop so that we can start to, have some efficiencies there and just position ourselves for the future. So as we go into expansion of shared services, as we look at bring your own device and the mobility of the workforce, we're prepared.
That's changed so much on the device, hasn't it? I remember a day, we're talking about at the White House when you couldn't take anything out, in or out, and then all of a sudden they're rolling out old machines and everybody's bringing in their own devices, and also it's very interesting. Margie, we promised not to give you another job today, but I know you're very busy. What are some of your priorities?
Well, I would consider the consolidation of commodity IT to be a priority for DHS, and the way that we're approaching that is through the use of as-a-service offerings. So this incorporates the cloud strategies that the federal government is embracing at this point in time. We've rolled out 12 services, some of them that we've done with GSA and their infrastructure as a service for hosting our public websites. But also internally, we've got dev, test, prod, so that a developer can, from the time they formulate an idea to the time that they roll into production, they will have a clear line of sight throughout the entire infrastructure experience, including inherited security controls that come from our data centers. And also some of the back office stuff like email as a service, SharePoint as a service, et cetera. And these things are not only helping us consolidate internally within DHS, and we are at post-merger integration of 22 agencies, but it's also giving us some efficiencies and effectiveness.
Okay, so some common themes actually too. So Robyn, I'll start with you on this question. What's one of the ways that you're working in your agency or across government to help achieve innovation and transformation of IT to sort of move the mission along?
Well, one of the things that we had to address as I've spent a little over 2 years at Treasury was to improve our governance process so that we could have a better sense of what was going on in IT across the many components of Treasury. And then as we respond to the initiatives that CIOs need to address, like portfolio stat, like the digital government strategy. As an example, we recently formed a working group that will focus on oversight of a number of data initiatives, the new open data order, the data components of the digital government strategy, some initiatives that have been there a while. We brought all of those together so that we could coordinate and not duplicate effort and make sure that we had a good strategy going forward that would address all of those needs.
I love that. The open API set, we continue to add a lot more on our site, and it's one of the most favorite things around researchers, educators, individuals just really looking at what data sets that government has available that individuals can use. So Casey, what about for you?
Well, I'll return to mobility. When you combine cloud computing's collaboration, social networking, and mobility, it results in a completely new paradigm and a really powerful way to get your mission accomplished. And we have rolled out several cloud solutions, and we've enabled them by equipping the employees who need them with smartphones and tablets and with the applications that run on those to be able to get their work done anytime, anywhere. Some of our research indicates that on an average day, any of our office space is only about 50% utilized. And what that means is that people are out with customers, they're out with vendors, they're doing their work where their work takes them. And so they need to have the ability to get their work done at any place, anytime, on any device. And so that's been a key priority.
That's really important. Margie, within DHS, is there a couple of case examples you could give us of something that you think is really working?
Sure, and this is also in the mobility area. When you think about how powerful this technology is at this point in time, if we can go to the recent disaster response to Hurricane Sandy, we have FEMA field agents that are dealing with people on the worst day of their lives, where they're recovering from a natural disaster and they're having to interact with FEMA to get benefits, to provide information so that they can be cleared for those benefits. And often the human interaction that occurs in the field is so important. And for FEMA to have the reach back through the mobility construct that we put in place at DHS, to be able to reach their applications and then to be able to directly interact with the public in their mission space is really critical and key. We also have examples of that in law enforcement, the recent Boston incident and the marathon bombing. That's an area where you see social media and the use of mobility coming back to the law enforcement community as information that they utilized, and they also published information out to the public, and people responded. And I would argue that the length of time that it took to actually apprehend the perpetrators in that particular incident was considerably shortened by the use of that kind of media.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm glad you brought up Sandy. You and the agency, FEMA, you've really had so much going on, and I think everybody here today, a lot of IT folks, we need to remember to support what's going on. We have so many Americans that have been in disasters this last year. It's with our hurricanes and our tornadoes, and I know you guys have really been stretched. So I think the IT community, anything we can do to support the individuals in those states, and we see them coming forward all the time. So we really appreciate what DHS has had to do, and I do a lot of work with Red Cross, and I see that jointness of communication and collaboration going on that really makes a big difference. So Casey, I'm going to come back to you. So, sequestration, lots of budget cuts, pretty much there's not a newspaper you can't pick up each day that talks about what we're trying to do both on the industry side and the government side. What are some of the ways that you're doing, that you're at GSA, of really trying to continue to innovate and transform with efficiencies at GSA in this time of budget cuts and sequestration?
One of the tactics that we're employing, or strategies we're employing, is to bring all of our IT organizations together into a single consolidated IT office. GSA is a mid-sized agency of about 17,000 users total, but we had seven different IT offices across the agency. And we have brought all those together into a single team to be able to deliver much more unified customer and end user experience, be able to eliminate duplication and eliminate individualized choices of technologies that ultimately didn't mesh to support the enterprise. So we think we'll be able to deal with the budget constraints in a much more effective way as a team that's all one, working together, leaning together, and doing a unified approach.
So what about you, Robyn? How's it affecting Treasury?
Well, we're not consolidating to the extent that Casey is, but we have strengthened through governance and through increased investment oversight our ability to know what's going on and to look at strategic sourcing. We've strengthened governance both within headquarters and in the bureaus, and also a Treasury-wide group so that we can come together and talk about priorities, talk about common needs, and that's working very well. It's given us some opportunities to meet a number of needs rather than everybody going out and doing a siloed solution.
Do you mind to give an example of something you've been doing in strategic sourcing there?
Yeah, we have a very active effort right now going on to standardize printers across all the components of Treasury, and I think that's going to result in, that seems a simple thing,
Yeah.
but it's going to result in some cost savings
Right.
for us.
Well, and you've got to get all those requirements. I mean, just collecting all the data from all the different groups is a big job right before you can. I think people forget how very difficult it is for you all in the agencies to actually just collect the requirements, to going through each and every group, because it's not like you're just one little department. You have many different individual groups, and your role as a CIO is you've got to look across all those in order to bring that together in the most appropriate manner.
And we recently started a new technical advisory working group so that as new requirements come up through the governance process, that group looks first at what solutions exist across Treasury and then to determine if there's something there that will work or we have to go out for something new. We recently had several different areas express a need for a customer relationship management solution, for example. And so that group came together, looked at requirements, and made decisions about what would work across Treasury. So again, efficiencies.
Yeah.
They're one solution instead of
Yeah.
many.
The CRM one's really interesting because you can see even the concepts of collaboration and social media. Now you have to have better CRM tools because you're getting feedback so much more rapidly. You have to be able to respond to that. We do that every day in my work, so you have to be able to be on top of it. I'm sure you guys are looking for new and creative ways. So Margie, again, you have lots of different groups that you have to support. What's maybe one or two ways that you're really trying to drive in budget cuts and sequestration? What are you doing to try to drive efficiencies and effectiveness in IT?
Well, I'd like to give you a couple of examples that are kind of in line with what Robyn was just talking about in the portfolio governance arena. Working with our mission space operators and having IT follow mission and re-engineer business processes. We're looking at certain efficiencies in the mission space where we could reduce duplication, and it's not about infrastructure even. It's about the approach to how you gather information and do business in that arena. And I'll give you a specific example. The deputy secretary previous deputy secretary over the last year has been leading a portfolio group called the Common Vetting Platform Group. And what they're looking at is they're looking at the many ways that DHS screens at airports, screens at the borders, screens cargo, looks at different types of people and goods coming into the country to make sure that there are no nefarious activities going on. And in order to do that, you have to share loads of information and you have to screen in an appropriate manner. Now all that platform can be common. The reason you screen and the questions you ask are different. So as long as you change the rule sets, and if you rationalize the business processes across those multiple venues where we actually screen individuals or cargo, then you can drive that kind of change to where you have one platform that's ubiquitous for the entire department, save money and have efficiencies that come from that. But then also, you get an information sharing plus up across those multiple domains that we're screening for different purposes so that you can get a better situational awareness.
Well, do you see, just sort of a follow-on to that, I mean, obviously, we've had one topic today that someone was talking about big data, and that sounds like that's what you're talking about, sounds like you're amassing a lot of data. I'll throw sort of something in there we hadn't discussed, but are you finding new ways within DHS that you can take advantage of the data to analyze it more appropriately to, help across agencies?
Absolutely. And I'll give you a couple of examples in that vein. If you think of the way that machinery and critical infrastructure for a multitude of years has been metered for a different purpose, for mean time between failure and to make sure that it's up and running. But it can also be used as a kind of a canary in the coal mine, early predictor of a cyber attack, of a critical infrastructure attack. If things start to go down and you start to see a pattern as you're analyzing that data of what's up and running, then it can give you a situational awareness of something that's happening in real time and before some of the intelligence comes together as to why it's happening. But it can give you early predictors. You can do the same thing in biohealth. If you look at early patterns of flu pandemics, you can check hospital data, you could work with CDC, you can see the kinds of activity that's going on in terms of people coming into a hospital environment, and you can watch those kind of spikes, so you can see regional activity, and you can see how far and how fast it's spreading. Those are the kinds of things that you can use big data to predict that will help you get out in front in terms of your response and recovery in the mission space.
Pretty exciting, actually. We don't have anybody from HHS or CDC, but that's the CDC BioSense program, in fact, I think, where all those indicators go in and everybody can share and that data gets analyzed. So it's, things are happening that we never even thought about 5 years ago. We could get to the details more rapidly. So Robyn, I'm going to come back to you, and I'd like to ask you to talk a little bit about, how as a government leader are you all sort of able to work together and connect? Because I know you're so busy within your own agencies, really trying to drive things. What ways have you found that you can work together, share best practices, or help solve some of the problems jointly?
Well, I think through the Federal CIO Council and the committee structure there, we have some opportunities. I've been one of the 3 chairs of the Management and Best Practices Committee that's part of the council over the last year or so. And one of the things that one of the projects that we have overseen during that time is CIOpedia. So that it's an opportunity for, along the lines of Wikipedia, that we set a structure out there, and we had different CIOs contribute to different portions of that, and then it's a living thing, so that we can continue to update that and add information that would be useful to CIOs, whether new or those who've been around for a while. There's always a need to look and see what somebody else has done around a particular practice or process or initiative.
I love that idea.
That's still in development as we speak.
Yeah, that actually sort of sounds fun too, to be able to share and update it. And what about for you, Casey? What kinds of things do you see that there's opportunities to do, or maybe you're already doing today?
GSA, and probably every agency, works with every other agency, and we're faced with very similar problems at some level, and so we always turn to our colleagues to try and understand where they're doing something we can learn from. But I think one really bright example of cross-agency collaboration is FedRAMP, which is, as you all know, the cloud security initiative that sets common standards, processes, and controls, and then provides a way for cloud service providers to meet those controls in a way that agencies can reuse those authorities to operate. It saves money for industry by having a single standard against which to validate their offerings, and it saves agencies time and money in being able to access these cloud services. And Margie and I both sit on the Joint Advisory Board that reviews those packages, and several cloud service providers have already been authorized.
Yes,
and
we're
received
very
provisional
excited.
authorizations. Yes.
And I know you have a lot of work to do there, because now, and I really applaud that program, because again, I think you're looking for a way to, how do you get new providers out there and new services out there and make the agencies feel comfortable? And I think it's really great that you all come together on that, and then you can sort of share, hey, what's going on, what's working, what's not, and I know that can be difficult. Margie, I'd love to hear what an idea or something that you could share with the group.
Well, some of these government-wide initiatives provide a wonderful umbrella for us to come together and collaborate. And I had a particularly wonderful experience leading a milestone for the digital government strategy. We just recently completed on May 23rd the delivery of the 9.1 mobility security baseline architecture. And we all 3 talked about how important mobility is to the future of our agencies, and it is to all of us writ large. And one of the biggest barriers to entry in that space is security. People's concerns about it, the levels of protection that you have to have for certain data, and the spectrum of data that you're dealing with, because some of the data you're dealing with is direct to the public and very open, and the other side of my equation is Intel and Secret Service. So I've got FEMA on one side, and I've got Intel and Secret Service, and all the law enforcement in the middle. All of those sets of data require different types of levels of protection. So working at the data layer, labeling, tagging, securing at the data layer, being able to search data, being able to protect it in motion, protect it at rest, being able to have applications that can be secured on the phone. All of these require that security architecture that we can all commonly share, and we can look at that and we can say, yes, similar to what Casey said about FedRAMP, I can look at what the cross-federal government panel did on this, and I can say that we looked at all of the NIST controls and we have given you that baseline so that you can develop that community of trust that we can all adopt, which is key to the adoption of the actual technology.
I love to hear you say that because it is true. I mean, you all, I'm sure you all know this, but a lot of times we go into the agencies as a industry partner, and they'll say, but I'm different because I have this model. Oh no, I'm different. I'm like, yes, we know you're different, but the common architecture's design, especially things like security, it's important. So to hear you say that, I think is probably music to a lot of folks' ears in this room to hear that you're sharing that. So I'm going to end up with a question for each of you to talk to the audience on about what's a piece of advice that you could provide the industry partners that are here today on how can they better support you and your agency for both the short and the long term? What could they be doing better? Because we're in different times, and I'll start with you, Casey, on this.
I think it's advice that I've given out before, and that is if you're coming in to visit with us, make sure that you understand our priorities and our critical goals and strategies, and help us understand, come ready to help us understand how your solution applies to those and how you differentiate yourself against those priorities. That's the key to the most productive kind of engagement.
That's good advice. Robyn?
I'll be a little more direct than that. Don't divide and conquer.
That's a good one.
We're struggling to find efficiencies.
Yeah.
We have to use what little funding we have left as it gets cut year after year to do the best we can, because we were talking before the session, budgets may be being cut and business areas may be looking to find efficiencies so they can cut their budgets. But guess what they're doing in order to do that? They're depending more and more on technology. And yet my budget's being cut the same as theirs. So we're just struggling to find every efficiency we can find. And really, if vendors want to be strategic partners with us, they need to come in prepared to help us do that. That's just the best. I think that's the best kind of partnership we can have.
Great advice. Margie?
Two things. Fill the gaps is one of them. There are always things that have not yet been dreamed, and we identify needs and requirements, and we don't yet have effective solutions for them. They're kind of cutting edge. So for example, one of the things we're working on now also to enable mobility, one of the key things in mobility is to be able to identify individuals, to know that that individual has a credential and has access to certain data. The form factor for mobility is not real conducive to PIV. So all of the kinds of solutions that we're looking for now, especially as we're working with our state and local partners at DHS, we're looking at things like derived credentials and tokens and other types of security architectures that can help us. And some of those haven't even been delivered yet. So if you could look and fill the gaps, that's number one. Number two is business models. Please look at the way you are marketing your services and understand that part of our equation for how we're going to live within this tight budget construct is to be able to go to consumption-based pricing. to be able to scale up, scale down, to not be doing perpetual licensing. There are a lot of business models that are out there that have been there for 20 years. We need to change it up. The business models need to follow the kinds of things that we're delivering today.
Well, I can tell you from somebody who wants you to be able to buy only what you use, I love that. That sounds great. Well, I want to thank you all very much for your time today and your service. And I do have to say, it's great seeing you because as somebody who's constantly looking for young women in technology and engineers, I think you're all three great role models for young women who are trying to start their career and they want to know how. And you guys are doing amazing jobs, huge jobs, what you have. So thank you for your service to the country and thanks for being with us today at FedTalks.
Thank you.